It is such an honor to be asked to speak to you again. I was here last year, so thank you, Leah, for extending another invitation and for giving me the opportunity to work with such a wonderful panel of psychologists. The topic is certainly timely, no insurance required. And I know that the idea for this panel was based on a series of articles being published by the APA Monitor, no insurance required. And we can understand why diversifying your income streams is so essential right now. There are a lot of problems with insurance and managed care. The administrative burdens are tough. You haven't seen any increases in reimbursement rates in a long time. As a matter of fact, some states there have been significant reductions lately. We're also seeing folks receiving letters about their usage of 90837. So all this causes some great anxiety, and we need to think of other ways to help with your income stream. I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about some of the things that APA and the practice organization has been trying to do on behalf of psychologists. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but I wanted to let you know that we are working hard, and we have for over the last 15 years or so, battling fires that are caused by insurance companies. We've been engaged with several lawsuits since the late 90s when it came to practices regarding audits and reimbursement. We stopped recoupment demands about 10 years ago by Oxford when they were asking neuropsychologists to return tens of thousands of dollars, and it's because they were improperly downcoding the claims, and so we were able to stop them from doing that, and it actually did result in some psychologists receiving refunds for the money that they had sent back. We have a really active government relations department that advocates before Congress on behalf of psychologists, and they were instrumental in getting mental health parity and the Affordable Care Act passed, and also repeal of the Affordable Care Act stopped, at least at this point. Recently, we actually were successful in getting a vendor fired, Sente Analytics, because they were sending letters threatening to audit psychologists, neuropsychologists specifically, for improper record keeping, and they incorrectly cited APA guidelines. So not only did we put a stop to those letters, we got them fired, which that felt pretty good. The same with other communications, that risk adjustment audits that are being conducted as a result of the Affordable Care Act. The original letters sounded a little threatening, and also they were in danger of making psychologists violate HIPAA by giving too much information. So we actually worked collaboratively to get those letters changed. Specifically, it started with Anthem, and then the other insurance companies followed suit. We file complaints regularly against insurance companies with state insurance commissioners and also with HHS and the Department of Labor for violations of parity, usually around reimbursement practices. Big win here at home for you guys in New York. Cigna had a blanket exclusion for neuropsych testing for several conditions, including psychiatric conditions and autism. That was a blatant violation of parity. The New York Attorney General agreed, and it got Cigna to reverse its policy nationally regarding this. So that was a really big win, I think, for us. And here's again more of the things that we're doing in response to TRICARE cuts. The TRICARE has changed its vendor to Humana in the East region, and they were trying to reduce rates. So we're lobbying Congress right now and the Department of Defense to get those practices changed. And then most recently, just to give you a heads up, I'm co-chair of a parity accreditation standard committee where industry and provider groups are coming together to create standards for insurance companies to meet to make sure that they're following mental health parity. And if they pass the steps, they can become accredited. And so we're hoping that this raises the bar in practices. And we'll keep you posted as we're still in the beginning stages of this, but we hope that this is going to help with that. So, why we're talking about outside of insurance is because we can't just rely on insurance and managed care anymore. And there are so many opportunities for psychologists. You all have such amazing training and education, and then you can put these skills to use in a variety of ways. And we have a wonderful panel here that's going to talk about some of the things that they've done. And I also encourage you to read the APA Monitor articles just to get stories of what other people are doing. But this list is obviously not exhaustive. I mean, these are just some of the things that you can use your skills as a psychologist, including things you don't really think of in business, in corporations. I mean, you think about APA, the administrators and the upper executive staff are psychologists as well, and they're using their knowledge of the profession to run this association. A lot of psychologists can run for Congress or become lobbyists themselves. I mean, using their knowledge of human behavior to help influence, and that's a wonderful thing. So some things just to consider as you're looking at doing things outside of
what your activity is within the scope of your license, then legal and ethical things will attach to you. So just keep in mind. Now, if you're working as a business executive, you're not working as a member of Congress. Or I'm sorry, I got that in my head. I'm not running, I swear. So you won't be so much concerned about the legal and ethical guidelines, but you need to keep that in the back of your head. The ethical code applies, technically it only applies to APA members, but it also applies to that part of your life where you're acting as a psychologist. But it's good to keep, those principles in mind in all that you do. Areas of risk. If you're going outside of what I would consider like a traditional psychotherapy practice, that's still working as a psychologist in many ways, you'll just want to be sure that you're still following the same areas of risk management that applies to your other types of practice. And that's making sure you're competent to do the services, you get informed consent, or at least talk to the client about any limitations to it, and be aware of any multiple roles that you might be creating by doing this other work. So again, this is just the ethics code, and you can find the entire code at apa.org/ethics, and you can read it, it's all online. But this is really important because if you want to go into, say, custody evaluations, and that's something that you're not familiar with, I mean, that's a big red flag. You're never having happy people. So you want to make sure that you're getting the proper supervision and training so that you're able to do this work. Same with informed consent. If you're doing things like disability evaluations, Social Security evaluations, forensic work, anything outside of the normal doctor-patient relationship in your office, you need to make sure that the person you're serving understands any limitations to the confidentiality. Because if you have to share that with a potential employer or with a disability review board, they need to know that up front. Being clear about your role, if you're acting, say, as a parental or a parenting coordinator, for example, you want to make sure they understand that that's what you're doing. You're not working as their therapist, that you've got a specific role that's been defined, and you don't want to then go into wanting to provide therapy, maybe to one of the parents. That would be improper. So just setting those boundaries. I mean, this is all common sense, but I think you just need to pay more attention to that if you're doing not what we would call the traditional model. Again, the definition of multiple relationships, and you can find this on the website. If you're a coach, obviously you can't be in a therapy role, you have to refer them out. Same thing if you're a therapist, you wouldn't be wanting to evaluate them for a disability claim. So you need to make sure not to merge those roles. Now, if you are not working within the scope of your licensure, say that you're running a marketing department and you're helping come up with great advertising strategies of using your knowledge of the human condition, and say that you get to know one of the members of the team really well. If you leave that job and then go back into providing therapy, you wouldn't want to provide therapy, obviously, for any of those coworkers that you know well. I know this sounds like real common sense stuff, and it is, but you just need to be mindful. Oh, and the other point too, if you're doing things outside of the scope of practice, you'll want to consult with your malpractice carrier just to see what they cover. You might not need it, especially if you're working for a company, but it's just good to be informed. That way you're moving forward, understanding what you're getting into. I wanted to bring this up, another rule about multiple relationships, because I've heard this we ask members a lot of times to get involved politically, going back to running for even a local office. And we've heard some objections to wanting to get involved because they're afraid that creates a multiple relationship. It's not a dual relationship, but there's nothing wrong with having a multiple relationship as long as it doesn't do harm to the patient. So, for example, if you are going to run for school board, you wouldn't ask your patients to start campaigning for you or to canvass the neighborhood. I mean, that would obviously be creating that kind of multiple relationship that the ethics code doesn't want you to go there. But there's nothing wrong with running for office and serving your community. So I just wanted to put that out there in case anybody had questions about it. So I kind of rushed through it because I wanted to leave time for this incredible panel that we have for you. And everybody's got their bios in the program. So, but I want to say a special thank you to Dr. Javier, Dr. Lutz, Dr. Mitchell, and Dr. Lehman. And I would like to turn the podium over